What if you could live your life judgment-free? Are you ready to live the unapologetic, confident life that God designed for you? If you are, then this is the place to be. Welcome to the Bold, Brave, and Sassy Show. It's time to break free of physical, spiritual, and heart-centered challenges that have held you back for way too long. Listen in for powerful tips and tools to help you break free today. Hear from leading experts along with me, Annie Berryhill, your host and personal guide to freedom. Now it's time to live like no one's judging. Let's go. Hey there, this is Annie Berryhill, and welcome to the Bold, Brave, and Sassy Show. I am super excited to have you here. If you've listened at all, you know that I'm pretty much super excited all the time. This has just been so much fun to interview amazing people who are making a difference in the world, and I really believe are going to make a difference for you in your own life. And today is no different. We have a very, very special lady, someone that I've known for quite a few years, and we are talking today about some important points. So let me tell you a little bit about Coco Graham. Coco is a highly sought after international speaker and women's leadership consultant. She impacts audiences around the globe with her humor, transparency, and heart-centered brand of speaking. She has a unique ability to engage and motivate her audience, and Coco has inspired thousands of women around the world to live bigger, bolder, and better lives. Coco is the CEO of Coco Speaks, LLC, a faith-based personal and professional development company which focuses on empowering and equipping emerging women leaders through workshops, speaking, and consulting. She's also the founder of the Women's Speakers Academy, where she teaches women in leadership how to expand their influence, impact, and income through speaking. Get this, Coco has been featured on CBS, ABC, NBC, Fox 40 News, Yahoo News, TV One, Mashable, and many, many other media outlets. She is the bomb.com of speaking. Welcome, Coco. Thank you so much for coming in and being on the show today.
Oh, thank you. I'm super excited as well. I'm thrilled for the discussion and so excited to be on today.
Well, I think that we are just going to have to hold this all back because you and I are both high energy people with a lot of stuff to say. So this is going to be fun. But as we were chatting before we got started, we have so much that we can talk about. And one of the things that has always struck me as really a connecting point between me and you is this heart-centered, this deep desire to be identified or just choosing our own identity as who we are in Christ, not what the world says. So tell me a little bit about how you got there.
Oh gosh. Well, it's been quite a journey. I wish I could say it was a quick come to Jesus moment, but it definitely took me a while. And I think where really the challenge started, if I just even back up a little bit to early childhood, was just coming up in a really difficult, dysfunctional family. My parents really struggled with drug addiction during my early years. And so that just really shook a lot of my foundation and my sense of worth and purpose, and kind of so unsure of who I was, and just a lot of instability in our household, and went through a season of even being homeless. And so as a young girl and young woman, I didn't really have a strong foundation in family or sense of self, or even really an understanding of who I was. And so my kind of goal in life was to really kind of amass success, so that to me that was stability. If I can go to college and get a good job and make a lot of money, then that for me will be stability. That will be happiness. It will cure all that ails me from my early childhood. And when I reached that point, I realized I'm not really happy. I'm still struggling with insecurity. I'm still feeling unstable, and it just isn't all that I thought it was going to be. And so I really had to start looking inward and not so much outward in terms of like what the world says. Cause I'm like, okay, well, the world says I should be happy at this point. I've, married and kids and the good job and, the big office and all of these things. And yet I still don't feel whole and complete. And it was just really a lot of soul searching, really getting before God and saying, what am I missing? Like what's going on? And he said, you're missing me.
Mm-hmm.
Like in all of your getting, you have gotten away from me, and all you're getting, get understanding. And I did not have an understanding of who I was in Christ. I didn't have an understanding of who God really was or what was really going to satisfy my soul. And the transition was at times painful because, you having to really look at yourself, but so freeing at the same time. And
Wow.
There just came a point where I realized I've been chasing the wrong things all this time. I've been chasing success. I've been chasing dollars. I've been chasing titles and accolades and degrees. I have neglected who and what matters most. And
Right.
first and foremost, God as my center, but even in a lot of ways, my family, because they were secondary to chasing all of these other things. And so I went through a period of time of really just having to reprogram all of my thinking and really get my heart and my mind right, and realizing that it didn't matter the big house, the cars, the job, and all of that. That wasn't, it's temporary. But also it wasn't what defined me. For a long time, I thought it did. And I realized this isn't what defines me. It is not what brings me joy. It's not what's going to sustain me in the difficult times. It's all Christ. It's all Christ. And that is where my significance, my value, my stability, my joy, my happiness, like all the things that I had been chasing, I realized it was for naught. And what I needed was Christ in me all this time.
I said in the beginning, what's so crazy is that I have always been drawn to you and your posts and how you speak and what you talk about. And now I know why, because we had a similar upbringing in that we had a dysfunctional beginning. And, I don't know about you, but I've had to work through a lot of my bitterness and resentment and work through the forgiveness, because now that I'm, in my 50s, I can look back over my lifetime of being a parent and being alive and say, wow, like if somebody was judging me for how I lived, even though I didn't live that way, the way that I was judging, the people that did that in my life, the person really, that would be really unfair and it'd be really hurtful. But it does set this foundation. And recently I learned, this idea of like, well, actually it kind of came together with all these things. Like the enemy was there when God created us, right? So he knows how our brains work.
Right.
As well as God looks, and as well as God does, right? So he can use those difficult beginning times to warp our brains, to plug into us a belief system based on our circumstances, what other people are feeding into us. Before 8 years old, we don't really make our own decisions.
Right.
We don't have our own ideas. They're just, spoon fed to us. And so both of us kind of grew up with this idea. And I don't know if it's this way for you, but I'm going to guess, and I'm going to ask you. I know for me, growing up, it was all about what I could do, right? What I could do would prove ultimately what I was lacking inside was that I was lovable.
Yes.
If I accomplished more, I was more worthy of being loved.
Yes.
And it doesn't work.
That whole sense of worth, right? Worth being loved, worth being, valued, appreciated. And it was all about this do. If I do more, 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 then that will prove to other people that I'm worthy and I'm lovable and I have value. And it was all about doing, all about performance,
Exactly.
all about trying to be perfect. And it left me miserable, but it was, you just hit the nail on the head. It's this feeling of I'm not worthy and valuable enough just being. I have to be doing.
Yeah. It's interesting for me. I get a lot of, I don't know, I guess analogies or things that I see that I feel like are descriptions of, things, lessons that people can learn through these ideas. And the one that God gave me not too long ago, or just a thought to think about, was, people have children who do not function in the world at all. They have to be fed. They're grown people and they have diapers changed. And yet they deserve love. They are here. They are alive.
Yeah.
We don't know. They're not doing anything, and yet they have value. So then you take people like us who are capable and able-bodied and not affected in any way, and we sometimes live under our potential because of the really janky thought process and belief systems that we adopted early. And everything we do is in response to that. Mm-hmm. And it's really the common human condition, I think, in women in particular, because, we're supposed to be fit and thin and beautiful and hot and sexy and accomplished and a great mother and a clean house and a healthy dinner on the table and bring home the bacon and fry it up in a pan. Like we have this myth that we tend to buy into, and constantly I always just believe it's the hijacker of the mind, which is the enemy's minions, who are just like, no, you're not good enough, you must do more, and then we react and respond to it. And it's not true. And being rooted in who God says we are. I am the daughter of the Most High King, the guy that created everything.
Right.
He chose me by adoption, and he treats me as blood, right? That's
powerful.
Right? I get chills.
Yeah, powerful. And you're so right. I think for women, there is, we're the hardest on ourselves in terms of just the expectations, right? And we get it also, right? Media, different images, comparison, the enemy just saying more and more, do more, be perfect, be perfect. And I think especially in this social media age, right? Where we can see people with these perfect homes or so it seems, right? Perfect lives, perfect, purely curated images that we see. And we're thinking, I can't live up to that. I don't live like that. My house isn't that clean. My kids aren't that well behaved, and so then I've got to do more. And gosh, I went to this, marriage conference years and years and years ago. And, the couple that was leading it, or that was, speaking, their last name, the Meisners. And the wife made this comment. She said, be careful of the barrenness of busyness.
Wow.
And that struck me. I mean, this was years ago, the barrenness of busyness. And that's where I was. I was so busy doing, trying to prove something, that I was barren inside. And my relationships, not just with God, but with even the people around me, were becoming just so barren. And that just jolted me into, I'm on this destructive path, because she was talking about being so busy and neglecting a relationship and kind of this downhill spiral that she ended up in. And I thought, thank you, Lord, for the word.
Yeah. And the heads up.
The heads up, because I'm headed down a really dangerous path here.
And that idea, like for a woman, the word barren is really so powerful, and it conjures up for me such a strong image of just an empty womb, and that's where creation and life happens. And we think about having like a barren soul, a barren inside, where the outside's doing all these things, like you said, but the inside is not producing anything of worth.
Yes. And that's it, right? Like, we're barren on the inside. I love how you said we're not producing anything of worth, which comes back to this whole thing of significance, right? Exactly. So I have what the world might say is success, but on the inside of me is really barren. And in terms of things that God's calling me to do, the people that he wants me to touch, the gifts that he wants me to share, even the relationship that he desires for me to have with him, it's it's non-existent. It's barren. There is no significance in terms of eternity, right?
Mm-hmm.
Purpose and
Right.
calling that is going on in my life. I'm not bearing good fruit. And that really became for me kind of this benchmark, coming back to, am I bearing good fruit?
Mm-hmm.
And are the things that I'm seeking after, that I'm desiring, that I'm doing, are they having a significance for the kingdom? Are they aligned to what God's calling me to do? Even if by the world standards, it seems crazy. When I left my principalship job, people thought, you're crazy. Like, you've worked to get to this point. What do you mean you're just leaving? And I said, God told me to.
Yeah.
I mean,
Wow.
I didn't have anything deeper than that. I mean, I can make a lot of excuses, but it came down to, I've really been praying about it, and I really feel like God said it's time to go. And so I have to be obedient. And I don't know what it's going to look like,
Right.
but I know that He's got me. And so off I go.
Yeah, I think one of the things that you said too, it made me start thinking about this idea of what the world says versus what God's telling us. And, some people listening may be like, God's telling you, like, I've never heard God in an audible voice. And that's not always how He speaks to you.
Right.
He can speak to you through the word. He can speak to you. Like for me, I tend to get visions, for lack of a better word. I get pictures in my head and they come so fast that there's no way that my brain could have actually come up with something so detailed and extensive. So I just have learned to trust that that's something that He wants me to understand. But how often what seems like the perfect thing to do in the world, the opposite, if we look for the opposite and go, wow, I feel like the world is really patting me on the back for this. Hold on. Let me check what the opposite of that would be, and then pray about that a little bit. Like, Lord, the opposite would be to do this crazy thing. And He's like, now we're talking. Now we're flowing on the same river, right?
Yeah.
So it's crazy, but we have to almost be countercultural in the sense.
Oh, definitely.
Like, God is always going to, be something different than what the world says, which is powerful stuff, but it's also an easy filter.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm. So there can be so much fear, there can be a lot of doubt, uncertainty, and giving up control,
Mm-hmm.
and giving up, in a sense, that that validation
Mm-hmm.
from the world standards, right? And so it really is a faith walk. It really is about just trusting that God is who He says He is, and He's going to do what He says He's going to do. And that ultimately He's got us.
Yeah.
It may not look like we think it's going to look, but He's got us.
No one grows without being under duress, right?
Yeah.
I mean, a tiny little seed has to push through the pressure of the dirt, right? I mean, it's all relative to where you are. And I think it's really powerful to understand that sometimes the indication that you are on a growth path is that there's some pushback, or that you have to push through some things, and you have to let go of stuff that doesn't serve you anymore. And I think all of these things are layered. I know for me personally, I think we've been on parallel paths from the beginning, where we've made this discovery to say, yeah, I'm doing all these things, but I'm feeling empty inside. And how do I flip the switch? And sometimes it is making that big decision of making a choice that has eternal significance, like changing careers. Because, I mean, even for me in this situation, I don't know, and I still don't know, where the podcast is going to lead, but I feel like He was saying, look, I've designed you to do these things, because not every single person who's alive is going to want to sit and talk to people. Like for my husband, that's like the worst kind of torture there is, he's an introvert, it just is, but for whatever reason, He puts us in situations that we can grow and succeed. Even if you fail, it's not a failure. You are not a failure, right? You've pushed through, and you got tired and you had to fall back, and then you push through again. And it's multi-layered. You have the discovery. This is part of how I coach people. I have this 5D process where you have that first opportunity to like awareness. Wow, what is that emotion that's driving me? Or where did I get this idea that I'm not worth it? that is the impetus for all the steps that follow into doing something different. And, the 3 steps in between, which is another show, by the way.
Right.
But I think it's amazing too, how we've known each other online, but never really sat down and had any discussion. And yet look what God's done for both of us, because it's where he wants to bring us.
Yes. So powerful. And I know I'm blown away that our stories have so much parallel when we've never even talked about them before. God's good.
Yeah. It's awesome. Fun. It's awesome. Hey there, it's Annie, popping by to ask you a quick something. I'm wondering if you've been feeling stuck somewhere in your life. Maybe you're asking yourself, how did I end up in this body, this situation, or this negative way of thinking? When did I lose control? If you are, I want you to understand, first of all, that you are not alone. I have been through so many of those types of challenges in my life too, and really felt powerless and lost. But I did find my way back, and now I feel like I'm better than ever, and I want to help you to find your way too. I want you to get through that process easier and faster than I did. So what I want to do is to offer you the opportunity to have a private lifestyle strategy session with me so that you can gain some clarity and confidence to move from feeling stuck to feeling free in your own life. All you have to do is go to the show page at boldbravesassshow.com and just enter your information into the box right below the little picture header at the top. And then you'll be guided through the steps to schedule your own session. I promise at the end of our 30 minutes together, you'll have the additional insights and understanding about how to move through your stuck places and into the unapologetically confident life that God has designed for you to live. Make sure to grab your spot. They are limited and filling up super fast. Thanks so much. Now back to the show. Your workshops and stuff, because that always appeals to me. I think we as women really need to be sewn into, but not just in a way where we're like, info. It's like, no, info, action, right? Let's make a change. So tell me a little bit about those workshops.
What I love what you say about it's just not info, but action. And I think that's the teacher in me that always comes back to there has to be some implementation. You say transformation doesn't happen just from inspiration, right? Or motivation. There has to be implementation. And so that is so big for me, is hosting events and workshops where, yes, they're motivating and they're fun, but at the same time, you're getting actionable information and really looking at implementation. So I love hosting events for women. I have a couple that I've done a few times, and they really are about more than just empowerment, but helping this whole concept, helping women to see who they really are in Christ, helping them to really stand boldly and confidently. We could have that and have a little sass with it, right? In terms of who they are, being brave enough to show up in their real full selves and own their gifts and own their purpose and own their calling and not shrinking back from it. I think sometimes, especially when God has called us to something big, we almost shrink back, or we don't want to tell, because it almost like, that's kind of bragging. I don't want to tell people, but I think you don't have to necessarily shout it from the mountaintop, but walk in it very boldly. And then really looking at, so what are those steps? So if you have these goals, or that God's called you to something, especially for my women who want to go into speaking, if you know that God's given you a message or some mission that he's really wanting you to champion, what are those steps to get you going, and also support system to keep you going, because it can feel really lonely and isolated, especially in this online space. So how do we build that confidence and that community, but also that really deep relationship with Christ? Because that's where it all starts and ends, and everything in the middle has to center around him. We can't lose sight of that.
Right. It's the anchor that keeps, it's sort of the anchor in the boat.
Yeah.
That keeps us from toppling over or sinking and losing our bearings, because he's always our bearings. And I do, as you were speaking again, I'm hearing what you're saying, and I'm thinking to myself, for some people, or all of us really, how much we're going to wander into that place that God has set out for us with all of our little backpack of gifts and talents and experiences and skills, right? We go out into the world with that, and how far we'll go is really dependent on how deep of a relationship we have with him. And for some people, that relationship builds fast and furiously and deeply in a short time. But for many of us, it's over time. It's almost like he's had to prove himself to us. We want to trust him, but we're so used to the world letting us down, and that people aren't trustworthy like God's trustworthy. And we only have that definition of trust, like how many people sort of define God by how their own fathers were. And when their own fathers were mean and judgmental and critical. I mean, I don't know any dads like that.
Right.
But when you grow up in that,
yes.
Like personally, I always believed in God. I always knew about Jesus, but I was always afraid that he was going to catch every wrong thing that I did and shoot a lightning bolt into my head.
Yeah.
So, I think growing in our trust in him and learning more and more and just saying, okay, I'm going to step out a little bit, Lord, this is as much courage as I have right now. So please meet me here and just show me that you're real and show me that you're still here and that this is the right way to go. And he honors that, which is so powerful.
Yeah. He will meet us where we are when we are just lay it all out. And he knows anyway, right? He knows we're struggling. He knows where we're struggling, but we'll just come to him and say, I really want to do this, but I have these concerns, and just show me. And I always tell women, tiptoe if you must, but just keep going. Some people can take those huge leaps of faith, or they just, they're just running. And some people, myself included, I was kind of a tiptoer, like, Lord, I love you and I believe that you are real and I know that you are good, but I am going to need you to kind of help me to get going here. But I think it's so key just to keep moving forward, or even if you're tiptoeing, even if there's small steps, just to keep walking. I always say too, it's not enough to just profess our faith, right? We have to possess faith, and we have to walk in it, even if it's baby steps, because God will honor that. And as we begin to see how he shows up for us, then our faith builds, because he says, all I need is a mustard seed, right?
Exactly.
You can just meet me there. I will show you my goodness and my faithfulness. And that just continues to build in us.
I think too of that verse, come to me like little children. And when we think of ourselves, I don't know. I don't know. This totally makes me get choked up, but I often see people as children. I can see a lightheartedness in them that the outside really doesn't show.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's just being a mom and having raised children from babies until adulthood and seeing the transformation and the metamorphosis that they go through, but also knowing them so well that I know the pain that they hide,
Yes.
And I think when we can think of ourselves in the most simplest, purest way, like for one of the things that works for me is a certain memory I have of when I was younger, where I felt the most alive, the most free, the most happy, the most joyful. And I have this image in my head, and it was from a real experience where I was probably 8. I was in my little plaid Catholic school girl dress.
Yeah.
I was wearing red shorts underneath because I was always doing cartwheels, always on the monkey bars, always doing things that I needed to be modest about, but this one time I was running through the fields, barefoot in the grass, just running and laughing and just loving. It's like being chased, but just being so strong.
Yeah.
And to me, that is the essence of who I am.
Yeah.
And the place that I always try to return to when I lose track of myself, because I think that's really how God sees me. He knows that I'm a grown-up girl, and he knows all the stuff that I've been through, but the essence of me is that girl running through the grass, just smiling and laughing, her hair blowing back, her little legs just pumping, and I think we all have that. I can see that little girl in you. When I look at you, I know what you look like. I know what you were like when you were little. I don't know why, but I just get that sense.
That's powerful.
And that's how he sees us. And when we reconnect to that in ourselves, it makes us even closer to him, because there's a simplicity and a purity to that too.
I'm speechless. I'm kind of getting chills. I don't even know how to respond to that. That is so powerful. It's so powerful. And if we can connect, I think, back to that place, right, of that pure joy and that freedom. And I just think about how free and brave and bold I was as a little girl before people told me I shouldn't be, right?
Exactly.
And that's how God wants us to be with him, bold and brave and free and trusting. I mean, oh man, that's just so good. That's so good.
We have permission, the last part
Yes.
of that is we have permission to be the exact person we were made to be. And during that time we, like you said, we didn't, maybe we followed the rules to fall in line, but still under the surface, that's, we're pushing up against it or whatever. We were just being who God really made us to be before the world really corrupted us and told us we had to be something different. So that, I think that ultimately is the basis for the driver for significance as opposed to success, that we can embrace our own true being and know that we're approved, that God accepts us, that he says, you are great the way I made you. Go do that. Go be that. Go be that.
Yes. So true. And that whole concept of just being, right? It's not about doing. It's not about this performance culture that we have fallen into, but just be who I've called you to be. You are enough. You're valuable, you're worthy, and I can use you just as you are. You don't need any more what the world might say, right? It requires to be successful that you can have significance, even if that calling isn't to have a big platform, right? Or it isn't to get out and speak to thousands. It could be just being a great, example of, faith and character and trusting in God, even in your home, right? I always say, for all of the, times that I've been on stage and people I've spoken to and, social media influence or whatever, what is, I think, most powerful for me, or what I'm most proud of, is the young women that I've raised in my home. That to have had a hand in them just being awesome. I mean, of course I'm biased. But they're pretty awesome young women and they love God. And that to me is so significant.
Well, and we all make our mistakes as parents. I can look back and see all the things that I wish I would have done differently. And one of the things that I even take comfort in now is that it really wasn't fully only my job. I was one piece of it, a very big, influential piece of it. But in every sense, no matter where they are with their walk with him, he still will continue to not just be a gentleman and be around, but not necessarily, bowling them over all the time, but he's always going to be there for them as well. And at some point we just, as moms, have to hand off the baton and go, okay, Lord, like, just like you dealt with me as an adult. You're gonna deal with them as an adult. And it's what I have found to be fascinating more than anything is to have adult children. Right now, my kids are 25 and about to turn 29, and remembering being those ages, and the person that I was is certainly not the person I am now. So my expectations can't be for them to be as evolved, as I am now.
Yeah. I saw this quote once, and it said, as parents, don't take credit for all the good that your kids do, but don't take blame for all the poor choices they make either, right? We're one piece of that bigger puzzle. But, I just wanted to communicate to the audience, significance doesn't have to mean that you're in front of thousands. Really, it's about the audience of one first and foremost, right? And then just living out what he's called you to do. That's significant.
It is. It's beautiful. This has been so incredible. I think that we could probably do a 3-hour show, and
we could.
Literally, I think I say that every time, because the people who have come on the show are absolutely incredible. I just adore you. I think you are just your smile. I mean, people who are just listening to the podcast can't see. You'll have to check out her picture, because she is just life. She's just life encompassed in a meat suit. a beautiful meat suit. But I have loved having you on the show. You've just taught me a lot. I love the way that we've been able to have parallel lives and learn lessons, but you've added to my understanding as well. And hopefully since you've been listening to this show with Coco and I, that you've also been encouraged and inspired to implement some things that you've learned today, because we are both teachers and butt kickers, action takers. And we really want you to be able to have the change that you want to have, the fruits of the Spirit, living out the love, peace, and joy that God promises, as you're drawing closer to Him. So hopefully you've been incredibly blessed. And Coco, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Oh, welcome.
You are awesome.
Thank you.
And I can't wait to chat with you again.
Thank you.
So thank you, everyone, for tuning in to the Bold, Brave, and Sassy show today. I look forward to speaking with you again. So as always, subscribe on iTunes, leave a review, tell your friends about it. Let's just share it and allow me to bless people that that haven't heard about it yet. Thanks so much for listening. Talk to you next time.